Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today we've got a very interesting bit of news. One of the key people working on the narrative of Cyberpunk 2077 has left CD Projekt Red, and in fact has been with Blizzard Entertainment for a month. Now, this guy, Sebastian, is no small fry. He was the narrative and setting director for Cyberpunk. Now, for Cyberpunk, that's a pretty major job because that is a world that has not really been portrayed a massive amount outside of its source material, and certainly not in the form that CD Projekt Red are trying to portray it. Doing that must have been an intensely challenging creative endeavor, and while the game is obviously not out yet, it is shaping up to be quite good indeed. Going purely off job titles, well, he is now a creative director at Blizzard. A creative director of what? Well, it's hard to tell, but as an overall situation, it's extremely interesting to dive into. Now, for Sebastian himself, this is likely a very good financial move, and to explain that, I'm going to quickly use the trusty Burgernomics Index. So, the Big Mac Index, this was started by The Economist in 1986, and it very much is not perfect, but it does get a lot of the point across. So, a Big Mac costs 10.5 zloty and 5.58 USD in the US. Now, to convert 10.5 zloty into USD at the real-world exchange rate, you'd find that a burger would cost $2.78. Now, since the US price of the burger is about $5.50, it suggests that the zloty is almost 50% underpriced as compared to the American Big Mac baseline. So that's some fun economics, but the point is that if you're being paid a Californian salary, that turns into a hell of a lot of Polish Big Macs. Now, I actually price checked a few McDonald's in Irvine. They seem to be about like $4 for a Big Mac before sales tax, but even with that, the point stands. Now, Cali salaries are pretty damn big in tech, and while Blizzard typically are on the lower end of the scale, it's just likely a great financial move for the guy, as the relatively cheap cost of living in Poland would mean that his CD Projekt Red wages probably wouldn't go super far elsewhere. Now, additionally, CDPR don't have an amazing track record with their employees, and some of their wages have been reported to be quite low. So, for Sebastian, probably a great career move. But that said, when you think about the games that he has worked on, Cyberpunk 2077, Witcher 3, Witcher 2, you think of mature writing, some of the really great stuff our industry has produced. Blizzard, though? Well, their stuff is cheesy and fun, at best, like the cover of a metal album, but at worst, their writing is... It feels like fan fiction, as if the people working the company are too caught up in how awesome their stuff is and how much they care about their worlds that, yeah, they just write fanfic to your stuff. Blizzard are at their best when they're adapting other people's work and they're iterating upon ideas. As an example, the old god stuff, H.P. Lovecraft. But they're not great at creating the original stuff, like the Faction War. So as for Sebastian, you really are seeing somebody who works in entirely different media. Yes, Witcher and Cyberpunk are both adaptations, but, I mean, one is like sitting down to watch a really, really good drama that's really, really deep. Just take the Bloody Baron storyline from Witcher 3. As for the Blizzard stuff, well, it's a bunch of very sincere people, full of passion, full of care, but yeah, blinded by how awesome their whole endeavor is, and really just making content that seems to have very little self-awareness. Comparing the storytelling of modern Blizzard to CDPR, they could not be more different. And I'm actually quite excited to see somebody who is used to writing in the Witcher style come over to Blizzard. I think he would be able to bring some sorely needed depth and maturity to Blizzard's writing, and I wonder if hiring him is proof that, well, Blizzard maybe knows they need to do that. And, of course, this is an external hire, and many people see these as being unfair. When you have a team full of people who have worked their socks off for years, why bring in somebody from outside of the company? Well, a company culture is formed eventually by the people who work in the company. That's why hiring is so important. Now, that company culture extends to the work produced by the company. Now, if you think you're on the right track, then it can make sense to promote an employee. It can. Ultimately, though, writing dialogue is very different from leading a creative team. Those skills are really important, and it's entirely possible to hire somebody out of competence. Now, in this case, Sebastian almost certainly works in a different mode to Blizzard as a writer. That's because of the games that he's worked on and the team that he has worked with. So if Blizzard wants a change in the style of their writing, well, promoting an existing writer on their team probably is not going to do that, especially when you remember, the people who write at Blizzard are generally, the kind of general creatives from the old days or quest designers. They're kind of not really trained writers. And that's why it makes sense to hire a creative leader who is entirely different in his company background and his experience with a series of games that could not be more different to those which Blizzard produce. So on the whole, yeah, I'm really quite excited to see where this could go. Having that extra layer of maturity and of depth to Blizzard's games would be fantastic. Seeing Blizzard hire against type is pretty wonderful. As much as some of their cheesy fun can be fine, some of it can be really great. Some more maturity and depth would probably be good for their games, and I think Sebastian could be just the man to lead that charge. It's just a question of how much control will he have, and what will his ability, be to actually affect change. Will he mesh well with the writers working under him at Blizzard? How will all that go? It's hard to know. There is one final question, though. What project could he be working on? Right now, we just don't know. Warcraft seems unlikely, and to be honest, I think he could be better used elsewhere. At the end of the day, I think writing for World of Warcraft should be seen as, writing a D&D sourcebook. I can't see Blizzard doing much with a StarCraft IP anytime soon. As for Overwatch, given Sebastian's experiences, I don't think so. Not to cast any aspersions, but Overwatch's story seems to be made for the Steven Universe crowd and the Twitter users, so I don't think that there's going to be much of a crossover there between the writing styles of, say, Overwatch with how it does things and The Witcher 3. Now, Diablo could be a decent fit with its embrace the dark mantra of the kind of new iteration that's in the works for D4, but that could just be surface level. It's hard to tell. Blizzard have never really went that deep in their Diablo stories, especially with D3. Still, things could work out quite well there, but we just don't know enough about the project or really how far along it is. It's also possible that Blizzard are working on new IP, and that they could be looking for a new creative vision to kick it off. If so, then having a narrative director with Witcher and Cyberpunk experience really does bode quite well, even though I mean, to be honest, I would expect most future games to come out as live services, so it's like, if you're doing that, why do you need a real heavy-hitting writer? Anyway, that's pretty much all that I have to say on the topic. I think the Blizzard likely wants some fresh ideas, and therefore they hired externally. For Sebastian, yep, he's moved away from his Polish salary to a Californian one, and since he's a creative director, he's likely going to be earning quite a lot more than your typical rank-and-file salary. As for Cyberpunk, I'd say it's mostly fine. I would imagine that Sebastian's work on that is mostly done, considering he was listed as the narrative and setting director, and that game seems to be in the tail end of its development. So there you go, that's this new news update, as well as a bit of speculation and, background to, I think, just give us a bit more insight into the two companies. So thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think down below. Especially let me know, what would you like to see from the narrative of Blizzard's games? I'd be really, really keen to hear that. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.